Hello everyone, welcome to your Eleanor, and this video we are going to explain Love Alert BL episode number 2. In the middle of the argument between Jimmy and Tay, Run happened to pass by and saw the two of them. He immediately tried to calm them down. Run said that they were both getting too emotional, and that it would be better for them to talk it out later. Run then took Jimmy away from there. Run asked Jimmy that if he didn't like Tay's brother, why did he have to do all of this? Jimmy instead teased Run, and even assumed that Run was jealous. Run firmly replied that he had already moved on. Jimmy thought that Run moved on too quickly. Run said that Jimmy should look at who he was talking to now, and he even took Jimmy away to make him realize things. Tay was Jimmy's best friend, so Jimmy should think carefully before doing something stupid. Run understood that Jimmy was the type of person who could sleep with anyone, but Toe was Tay's brother. It would be better not to involve Toe. Before leaving, Run heard that Jimmy was chasing Fa. Jimmy asked how Run knew about it. Run only gave him encouragement so Jimmy could succeed, because Jimmy was not comparable to Fa at all. Run even mocked Jimmy. Jimmy confidently said that Run could keep watching him, because he would make Fa his. Tay returned home, but before going inside, he wondered whether Jimmy hadn't thought as far as Tay had all this time. However, Tay didn't want to think about it anymore, because everything had already happened. Meanwhile, at Jimmy's house, he muttered that Tay was very nagging when it came to his brother, and wondered how he could get close to Fa. Jimmy thought for a moment that maybe he could use Toe to get Fa, because Toe was his best option. But how would Jimmy handle it? Jimmy was seen inviting Toe to eat together. Seeing the food served, which looked very tempting, Toe praised it, saying it looked amazing. Jimmy felt the same way, but he wasn't focused on the food. He was more focused on Toe. Jimmy didn't even talk about the food in front of him. Hearing that, Toe blushed and diverted his attention by drinking water. Jimmy suddenly asked if Toe could let a little of the drink wet his lips, so Jimmy could help wipe them for him. Jimmy immediately did what he had just said. Toe naturally smiled. Jimmy moved closer and said that there was something he wanted to tell Toe, and that it was very important. Toe asked what it was. Jimmy explained that Tay liked Fa, but didn't know what to do. Could Toe help him? Toe nodded in agreement. He asked what kind of help he could give. The next morning, Tay saw how busy his brother was, and asked why Toe was suddenly holding a party. Wasn't Toe an introvert? Tay wanted to know the reason. Toe explained that he just wanted to cook for a few friends before his cafe opened. Suspicious, Tay asked whether that was really the only reason, and who the friends were. Toe mentioned Fa's name. Hearing that, Tay thought it wasn't a party but a date. Toe replied that since Tay was also joining, it couldn't be called a date anymore, unless Tay didn't want to come. Tay immediately said that was impossible, because part of the money was his. So Tay had to eat as much as he wanted. Tay stood up to say goodbye. Before leaving, he hugged his beloved brother. As soon as Tay left, Toe smiled. At campus, Tay approached his friends. Seeing their gloomy faces, Tay asked why they looked so down, and what they were doing. One of them replied that how could they not be stressed? They had been working on a group report all night, and it still wasn't finished. Tay checked his friend's report, and then realized that his own report wasn't finished either. Confused, Tay wondered whether the professor would give him extra time if he submitted it late. Professor Boss came out of the lecturer's room and instead asked Tay whether he intended to check his report. Because once it was submitted, Professor Boss didn't allow revisions. Tay was shocked because his assignment had already been submitted. It turned out that Jimmy had submitted it that morning. The professor even praised their report, saying that the two of them had done a very good job. Hearing that, Tay went to find Jimmy. They talked privately. Tay asked why Jimmy had written his name on the report. Wasn't Jimmy still upset with him? Jimmy replied that he didn't bring their personal issues into academic matters, and Tay shouldn't overthink it. Jimmy understood why Tay was so protective of Toe. Jimmy couldn't help himself because Toe was indeed cute. Hearing Jimmy say that, Tay became annoyed again. Jimmy told Tay to calm down. He was only stating the truth. Tay explained that he was genuinely worried about Toe and didn't want Toe to get hurt at all. As long as Jimmy didn't toy with him, they would be fine. Since there was nothing more to discuss, Jimmy had to leave. But before that, Tay told Jimmy that he and Toe would be holding a party at their house, and Jimmy had to come. But Jimmy had to remember not to flirt with his brother. Jimmy agreed and left. After finishing college, Tay and Jimmy came together. Tay began praising the aroma of the food that Toe had prepared. Tay was about to eat the food with his hands, but Toe stopped him because he had to wash his hands first. Tay asked his older brother to feed him. However, Toe's hands were dirty as well. He immediately gave up and told Tay to go wash his hands. Even though he was annoyed, Tay agreed and decided to take a shower as well. Jimmy started praising Toe, and Jimmy said that he was jealous of Tay. He didn't come empty-handed either. Jimmy brought several drinks. The doorbell rang. Happily, Jimmy immediately ran to open it. Just as Jimmy had hoped, the one who arrived was Fah. Seeing Jimmy inside Toe's house, Fah thought he might have come to the wrong place. But he was sure that this was indeed the correct house. Fah asked whether Toe was at home. Jimmy nodded yes. Fah started greeting Toe. Seeing Fah bringing drinks, Toe said that he had already reminded Fah not to bring anything. But after hearing that they would be eating grilled beef, Fah brought the drinks because they would go well with it. He even borrowed them from his parents. Fah asked whether Toe needed help. Toe said there was no need. They could wait until Tay finished showering, and then they could start grilling. Fah asked where the toilet was because he needed it. Toe showed him the way. After Fah left, Jimmy asked if Toe needed help. Toe said no. It would be better if Jimmy sat down, and Toe would take care of the rest. Tay came downstairs and saw Fah. He started greeting him by calling him older brother. Hearing Tay call him that felt like a challenge to Fah, and he accepted it. After the food was ready, Fah began talking about the past. About the time at the volunteer camp when Toe had a fever. Toe remembered that moment, and for him, that camp had been very enjoyable. While Tay was washing his hands, Jimmy tried to get closer to Fah. He asked whether Fah liked the beach. Fah answered that he didn't really like it. He preferred the mountains. Fah invited Toe to go on a trip soon, because he really longed for a cool barbecue night. Toe said that Fah could arrange the date. When Fah checked his schedule on his phone, Jimmy gave Toe a signal to ask something. Toe asked whether it was a schedule for a girlfriend. Fah explained that it was a study schedule. Because since his last breakup, Fah hadn't been looking for a serious replacement. Maybe only one-night stand relationships. Hearing that made Jimmy happy. He gave another signal to Toe. Toe asked again whether Fa was now interested in a girl. Fa nodded, because for him, now he felt more comfortable with women than with men. Because the people he usually met were just players. They acted sweet in front, but were completely different behind. Fa hated that. If Toe later had a boyfriend, Fa said he would have to check the person first. Toe smiled while occasionally glancing at Jimmy. When Fa was about to go home, he saw Tay sleeping on the sofa. He looked at him and smiled. Fa thanked Toe for that night. He also asked Toe to pass along his farewell message to Tay, because Tay had gone straight to sleep after dinner. Toe asked whether Fa wanted him to wake Tay up. Fa said there was no need because he was going home soon. Fa glanced again at the sleeping Tay and remembered what had happened earlier that afternoon. Fa murmured that it would be fun for him. While Toe was washing the dishes, Jimmy helped him. Even though Toe told Jimmy to go to Tay, Jimmy said that since they had eaten together, they should clean up together as well. Toe immediately replied that it was not allowed, because in his house, guests were not allowed to wash the dishes. Meanwhile, in Jimmy's house, they didn't just sit while the host cleaned. The two of them ended up fighting over the sponge, and unintentionally got close to each other. In that situation, Jimmy kept staring at Toe, and Toe did the same. But suddenly Tay woke up and asked why Toe hadn't woken him up to go sleep upstairs. Because his whole body hurt from sleeping on the sofa. Seeing Jimmy, Tay asked why he was still in the house. Nervously, Jimmy answered that he was just helping Toe wash the dishes. Hearing that, Tay invited Toe to leave. Besides needing to take a shower, Toe also had to sing a lullaby. And Jimmy had to finish his task of washing the dishes. After the two of them left, Jimmy wondered why his heart was beating so fast. But he convinced himself that the one he liked was Fa. The next day, Jimmy and the three of them arrived at the place they were heading to. Jimmy asked whether Fa was okay sitting in the back. Jimmy was very attentive toward Fa, but Fa acted normally. In the same room as Tay, Jimmy said that Fa barely talked to him. Tay said that Jimmy was being too obvious. According to him, it would be better if Jimmy made Fa feel curious about him. Jimmy said that he had really tried hard, but Fa was still ignoring him. If Jimmy stayed quiet, he wouldn't be noticed at all. But that was all the advice Tay could give. When Fa was outside with his camera, and Tay was walking alone, Tay accidentally saw him. Tay immediately turned his body away. Noticing that Tay was avoiding him, Fa asked whether there was a problem between them. Tay answered that there wasn't. He had just seen Fa taking photos and didn't want to disturb him. But Fa took a photo of Tay, because now Tay was his subject. Tay said that he couldn't pose. Fa told Tay to look at the photo. Fa said that he thought he really liked Tay. And next time, Tay shouldn't call him older brother. He could just call him by his name. While Fa was speaking, Tay kept staring at him. Tay felt his heart beating fast. Toe, who was busy with cooking ingredients, was startled by Jimmy's arrival. Jimmy then helped Toe. And unintentionally, their eyes met again. Jimmy said that Toe's hands were very soft. Feeling shy, Toe made an excuse that he was going to wash the vegetables. Realizing that he kept smiling whenever he was with Toe, Jimmy reminded himself again that the one he liked was Fa. That night, Toe and Fa were in charge of grilling. While Tay sat and played the guitar, Fa offered to feed Tay. Tay answered that it wasn't necessary. Jimmy came over and, seeing them, muttered that he really wanted to eat. But it was different when it came to Tay. Pfaff told Jimmy to eat by himself. Tay laughed and teased Jimmy. After eating and drinking, Tay saw that To was drunk. He suggested that To go to his room immediately. To said that he wasn't drunk. But seeing To's condition, Pfaff intended to escort him to his room. Jimmy stood up and said that wasn't necessary, because he would escort To instead. Pfaff could stay there, and Tay also had to stay there. Jimmy helped lay To down. When Jimmy was about to leave, To stopped him. He wanted Jimmy to stay with him, because he was afraid of ghosts. To wanted Jimmy to stay until he fell asleep. Jimmy agreed. He sat beside To. Seeing Jimmy being close to his older brother, Tay was clearly annoyed and also worried. Pfaff, noticing this, said that if Tay was worried, it would be better for him to check on him himself. Tay replied that he couldn't go. He didn't want to leave Pfaff alone. Hearing that, Pfaff thought that Tay was avoiding him. Pfaff moved closer to Tay, and they almost kissed. But Tay pulled away. Pfaff asked whether Tay didn't want to kiss him. Tay explained that Jimmy liked Pfaff. But for Pfaff, he didn't like Jimmy. And he didn't want to be in a serious relationship. Pfaff suddenly kissed Tay. Tay was carried away by the moment and accepted the kiss. Because it was already late, it was better for them to go to sleep. Pfaff asked whether he could sleep in Tay's room. Meanwhile, Jimmy, who had just come downstairs, could see Tay staring at him. Jimmy explained that To was afraid of ghosts and had asked him to stay by his side until he fell asleep. Jimmy asked why the two of them had come back. Whether they had run out of snacks. Pfaff said no, they were going to sleep. Tay also added that tomorrow he would be the one driving, so he couldn't take any risks. Pfaff went to his room, and before that, he said good night. In his room, Jimmy felt happy because Pfaff had said good night to him. Jimmy asked what Tay had said. Tay replied that he had only told Pfaff that Jimmy liked him. Jimmy became very excited. He asked what Pfaff's answer was. Tay only explained that Pfaff didn't say anything. Jimmy felt disappointed and curious about the answer. Even so, he was still happy, because the air conditioner in their room was broken. Tay immediately called the accommodation staff. But since it was already midnight, all the technicians had gone home. At first, Jimmy suggested that they sleep without clothes. Of course, Tay didn't agree. Jimmy then suggested that they sleep in To and Pfaff's room. And this was Jimmy's opportunity. Jimmy and Tay went to To's room. Jimmy started sleeping on the bed and intended to sleep near Pfaff, while Tay slept on the floor. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough space for Jimmy. Tay suggested that Jimmy sleep on the floor with him. Jimmy said he didn't want to because his back would hurt. So, whether he liked it or not, he slept next to To. Feeling that everyone was asleep, Pfaff woke up. He moved to sleep beside Tay. Pfaff tapped Tay's nose. Tay immediately woke up. Pfaff asked whether he could sleep beside Tay. Tay agreed. Pfaff then told him that he had once seen Tay at a club. Maybe Tay hadn't noticed Pfaff at the time. Pfaff complimented Tay, saying that he was very attractive. No wonder Tay was always with new people. Pfaff then asked Tay an important question. Had Tay ever wanted a serious relationship? Tay explained that he used to, but he didn't know what love felt like. Every relationship Tay had was only about sensation. Once the spark disappeared, the relationship ended as well. Tay felt that he couldn't love someone with his whole soul. It would be better to be alone. How could there be love without devotion? But Fa asked again. What if one day Tay found someone to whom he could give his whole heart? But what if it turned out the opposite way? Wouldn't that destroy Tay? For Tay, at least he had to love someone. Hearing Tay's answer, Fa kissed him. It didn't stop at just a kiss. They spent a hot night together. Tay covered Fa's mouth so he wouldn't make a sound. And without the two of them realizing it, Jimmy woke up and knew what they were doing. Jimmy immediately covered Toe's ears. Toe asked whether Jimmy was okay. Jimmy could only apologize, and all he needed at that moment was a hug. Sad and disappointed, Jimmy hugged Toe. That's all for this part. See you in the next episode 3. Thank you for watching and then have a nice day.